You look up and see depth. Blue by day, black by night. A vast opening stretching away from you in every direction. You experience the sky as distance, as volume, as emptiness. This feels obvious. It wasn't. For most of human history, the sky was not a place you could move through. It was a surface, a boundary, something stretched above the world like a covering pulled tight. Not far away, not deep, just up. People did not imagine stars scattered across enormous distances. They saw lights fixed onto a structure, embedded, attached, carried across the sky as part of its motion. Nothing floated. Nothing drifted freely. The heavens were orderly because they were held in place. Even the blue of daytime wasn't interpreted as depth. It was appearance, texture, sometimes substance. Something present, not something absent. The idea that you are peering into an immense three-dimensional void requires a mental step that humans simply did not take. Because seeing distance where nothing exists is not natural perception. It is interpretation. And interpretation had to be invented. You assume everything is located somewhere. Your chair is in a room. The room is in a building. The building is on Earth. Earth is in space. Nested containers. Larger and larger surroundings. Always an outside. This feels unavoidable. Almost grammatical. To exist is to exist in something. But early humans did not think this way about the world itself. The world did not need a surrounding environment. It was not placed inside a larger volume. It did not float within a cosmic backdrop. It simply existed, complete and self-contained. Asking what lies beyond the world made no sense, in the same way asking what is north of the North Pole makes no sense. The question assumes extension where none was believed to exist. There was no mental slot for an external arena called space. Reality was not embedded. It was total. This is difficult for you to feel, because your intuition insists that boundaries must separate something from something else. But if the world is everything, there is nothing left for it to be inside. And without an outside, the idea of space cannot even begin. You think emptiness is simple. Just remove everything. No air, no matter, no light. Nothing remains. A void. It sounds straightforward, almost trivial. Children can imagine an empty box, an empty room, empty space between objects. But these are not examples of nothing. They are examples of something with less in it. True nothing is different. No substance, no structure, no properties, no dimensions, no location, not even silence, because silence requires the possibility of sound. For much of human thought, this was not just difficult to imagine. It was impossible to accept. If nothing exists, what distinguishes it from not existing at all? If a region contains nothing, how can that region itself exist? If there is no substance, what defines its shape or extent? The very idea seemed self-contradictory. Many thinkers concluded that nature simply could not allow emptiness. A true void would collapse the logic of reality itself. Something must always fill every place, because a place with nothing in it made no sense. Even motion became a problem. If an object moves forward, what does it move into? If that region is nothing, then nothing must somehow receive something. That sounded absurd. So the universe, they reasoned, must be completely full. No gaps. No true emptiness. Every apparent void filled with invisible substance, subtle material, or hidden structure. Not because they observed it, because the alternative, actual nothingness, felt logically unbearable. Space, as you imagine it, depends entirely on emptiness being real. And for thousands of years, the human mind refused to grant that permission. You are comfortable with endless space. You say the universe has no edge, no boundary, no outer wall. If you traveled forever, you would never reach the end. You say this easily, but your mind does not actually accept it, because a bounded world is intuitive. A room has walls. A field has edges. Even the horizon feels like a limit, a place where vision stops and something must begin beyond it. For most of human history, the universe worked the same way. It had structure, order, and crucially, limits. There was a highest region, an outermost layer, a final boundary separating existence from whatever lay beyond, if anything lay beyond at all. Then that boundary was removed. Not physically, conceptually, and everything became unstable. If the universe has no edge, where is its center? If space stretches equally in all directions, no location is privileged. No point anchors the structure of reality. Your position becomes arbitrary. Worse, scale loses meaning. In a finite world, size can always be compared to the whole. In an infinite world, the whole cannot be measured, imagined, or contained. You cannot picture infinity. You can only repeat the word. Try to visualize endless extension. Not a large distance. Not billions of light years. Not an unimaginable number. No limit. No termination. No final surface. Your mind quietly replaces infinity with very far. It shrinks the idea into something survivable. But true infinity does not behave like extreme size. It removes the possibility of total perspective entirely. Once the universe lost its boundary, space stopped being a structure you could comprehend as a complete thing. It became something you could only ever inhabit locally, without orientation, without scale, without final reference. Humans did not discover infinite space. They discovered that the universe might not be containable, even in thought. You cannot see space. You see objects, motion, change. But space itself? Never directly. And yet, at some point, humans began measuring it. This is a strange decision when you think about it. To measure something normally means to compare it against a standard. You measure length with a ruler, time with a clock, weight with a scale. But what do you compare space to? You cannot hold it. You cannot isolate it. You cannot point to a sample of pure space and examine its features. So humans did something unusual. They measured relationships instead. Not space itself, but how objects separate, approach, and move relative to one another. Distance became defined by intervals between things. Geometry became a language for describing how positions change without ever touching the medium that allows position to exist. Space became structure inferred from behavior. If a planet moves in a curve, something must allow curvature. If light travels a consistent path, something must preserve direction. If objects can be closer or farther, something must sustain measurable separation. Space was never captured, only mapped through consequences. This required a quiet shift in thinking. Space stopped being a visible arena and became an invisible framework, something whose properties were deduced the way you deduce wind by watching leaves move. You never see the wind itself, only its effects. But even this analogy is misleading. Wind is made of moving particles. It is a substance. It can be contained, compressed, heated, slowed. Space offers no such reassurance. It allows measurement without offering presence. It produces geometry without revealing material. It behaves like something, while refusing to be anything you can point to. So humans learned to calculate distances through emptiness they could not verify. They trusted patterns of motion more than perception. And this is when space became unavoidable, not because it was observed, but because the universe behaved as if an invisible structure was continuously there. You still imagine space as a kind of box, an enormous, invisible container where everything happens. Galaxies drift inside it. Light travels through it. Matter occupies regions within it. Space holds things. This picture feels neutral, passive, harmless. It is also wrong. The turning point came when motion itself refused to behave inside this imagined container. If space were just an empty stage, movement would be simple. Objects would glide through a fixed background that never changes, never reacts, never participates. But the universe does not behave like that. Paths bend when nothing pushes. Clocks tick differently depending on where they are and how they move. Distances stretch or shrink without anything physically compressing or pulling them in the ordinary sense. The geometry of the world changes, even when no material surface is being reshaped. This is deeply unsettling. because it means space is not merely where things happen. It helps determine how they happen. Imagine drawing a straight line across a perfectly flat sheet. Now imagine that sheet quietly warping beneath the line, stretching here, curving there, without tearing, without wrinkling in any visible way. The path you thought was straight is no longer straight, not because the line changed, but because the underlying structure did. Now remove the sheet. Remove the material entirely. Keep only the changing geometry. That is closer to what space became. Not a container. Not an emptiness waiting to be filled. But a network of relationships that can shift, distort, and evolve depending on matter, energy, and motion. Space no longer sits beneath reality. It participates in reality. And this destroys one of the last intuitive supports your mind relies on. The idea that there is a stable background against which events unfold. There is no fixed stage. The stage bends with the actors. And sometimes, the stage is the action. You might think the story ends once space becomes measurable, dynamic, woven into reality itself. But that was not a conclusion. It was the point where understanding lost its final foothold. Because every step that made space more precise also made it less imaginable. You cannot picture a sky that is not a surface. You cannot picture emptiness that has structure. You cannot picture geometry that bends without anything bending in it. And yet, this is what the best descriptions of reality require. Space is no longer something you observe, not something you move through, not even something that simply exists. It is a framework that allows existence to have position without ever becoming an object itself. You never see it. You never touch it. You never step outside it to examine it as a whole. All you ever perceive are events, arranged in ways that behave as if space is there. And so the discovery of space did not reveal what space is. It revealed a permanent limit. Humans did not uncover a vast empty arena surrounding them. They uncovered that reality possesses structure deeper than perception, deeper than intuition, deeper than visualization itself. Space is not what surrounds the universe. It is the condition that allows a universe to appear at all. And whatever that truly is, remains beyond anything the human mind was built to hold. That was the final chapter. Would you like any revisions?